Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Voice of Gord. A little short intro for you today. It's been a few weeks since I put out a show. Been really busy over here, lots going on. Lots more stuff to bring you eventually if I ever get the time and get around to it. Today's show features Mr. Freedom George Billings, a fellow you would have known from the Freedom Convoy, very enthusiastic supporter of it. He also became a guest of the Trudeau Regime and joins the show to tell us about what got him involved, what took him out to Ottawa from his home in Alberta, his time inside, and what he's been up to since. George is a real good guy, real salt of the earth, proud Canadian. It was a real pleasure to talk to him. A little warning though, I got a little cranked up. It was a bit spicy. Probably swore a little more often than I normally do, so if you don't like swear words or me getting mad, now's your chance to exit. Also, this was recorded back in January before two of our friends of the Coots 4 were released. So some of the intel might be a little bit old, but the predictions that George and I made in the conversation about the four men, most of them came true, and that's kind of interesting. But anyhow, hope you all enjoy the show. Thanks for listening. We live in a world that's lacking in gratitude greatly at the moment. There's just none of it anywhere, and I have to remind myself that in order to get some, I have to show some. So thank you for listening to this show. If you read my Substack or my various articles at places, thank you for your eyeball time. I appreciate that you think I have something worthy to say. Anyone out there want to get back to me and tell me I'm doing something wrong, or just want to say hello or have some other reason for contacting, gordilocks at protonmail.com. You can also subscribe to the show at autonomoustruckers.substack.com. And as always, best advertising for this show is word of mouth. If you don't mind sharing it with your friends, especially if they're other truck drivers, this show is for you guys. All right, let's get to it. All right, g'day everybody. Welcome to another fine installment of the Voice of Gord podcast. As always, my guests are very special, but this guy is extra super duper awesome special. Those of you who followed the Freedom Convoy back home in Canada a couple of years ago and its aftermath would have seen a real viral video of a grizzly bear of a man walking out of a courtroom in Ottawa to a whole bunch of supporters and celebrating how awesome he is with a great t-shirt that said, "Fear God, not COVID," which he is wearing to this very interview. Please welcome to the show, Freedom George.
Hey, Gord, how you doing, buddy? Thank you for having me on. It's always good to talk to people who are spreading awareness and the truth out there in this crazy world.
Yeah, it sure is a crazy world. This podcast is going to come out at some point in the 3 weeks of Convoy second anniversary. So, it's 2 years. It's 2 years on since the greatest, most peaceful biggest protest in Canadian history took place. Seminal moment in our nation. A time that brought hope to a lot of people after so much darkness under the venal and vindictive COVID regime of Justin Trudeau. And I gotta watch what I say so my show doesn't get canceled.
Yeah, exactly.
So, George, you were there.
You drove all the way from Alberta. You live in Alberta. You're also a trucker.
Yeah.
Please tell my audience, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into trucking, how you got into the Freedom Convoy, and your travels to Ottawa.
I'm a Northern Alberta boy. Grew up on a farm. My father was, he come up here. They pioneered this land. It was all bush. So we weren't rich at all. He's still up here pioneering in the land, 60 years later. And, I worked hard as a kid, learned how to drive tractors and stuff at a very young age. And, cleaning the barn and all that fun farm stuff. I learned my work ethic from that. I've always been a kind of a wild man, always living in the gray area, always pushing the rules, those man-made rules. Always pushing the law all the time, living on the edge all the time. Mostly in my life, I've had quite a few near-death experiences, and I was a wild man for quite some time.
The mountain might get him, but the law never will.
Yeah. And I've went through the alcohol, the drugs, and all that stuff, and I am a recovering addict. I'm doing very well with it. It's been a very long time, and I'm not scared to talk about it. I like helping others. It's just who I am. So I'm not a very book smart guy, but I'm a very street smart, common sense type person that just cares. And I always knew that things were not right with the government and all that. And I never did vote once in my life until Justin Trudeau was running. That was the very first time I ever voted because I knew we were in trouble if he got in. And of course, my feelings were correct because everybody always talks about the lesser of the evils. And I mean, they're all evil in my eyes. They're all in it together. But the Conservatives were not doing what Justin Trudeau did when they were in power. That's just the cold hard fact of it. But if you look into how this got here, well, Harper and all that stuff, I mean, it's there. They're all in it together.
There's no good guys. There's really no good guys in Canada right now. Very few, and they're not in power.
That's exactly it. And we need to change that somehow. I don't know how it looks, but we're going to keep pushing forward. And God always wins in the end, and good people will come out of this. So just 2020 happened, and okay, it was 14 days to flatten the curve. I was like, okay, fine, I'll stay home on the farm for 14 days and mind my own business, whatever. I'm like, okay. And then I started looking into things. That's when I went down the rabbit hole, and I started actually looking at stuff, and nothing made sense. The biggest thing that got me when I knew it was BS is they said this virus was so bad, it's so deadly, stay at home, this and that. But yet the flights were still coming and going from every single airport across this whole country. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, something's wrong. And that's when I went down the rabbit hole.
That might have been racist to cancel flights, bro. You can't you can't stop all the different people of the planet from just showing up in Canada whenever they want. That's not within the government's purview, dude. We're a post-national state. We don't have an identity. Anybody can show up here no matter what they're carrying.
Yeah, exactly. But we can't fly unless you get the jibby jab. Right? You can't. I couldn't go on a plane or a train.
Yeah, you were one of the people who had medical apartheid imposed on your life.
Yeah, you bet. And I knew something was up with all that too. There's no way they come out with that BS so fast, and there was no way I was putting it in my body. I don't care. I'll die before I put that stuff in there. So it's but into 2020, so I go down the rabbit hole, and I start waking up more, and I start seeing more and more, and I'm going, wow. And then how I became Freedom George and how everything went down is I had an awakening right here on my property outside. I've seen it's a story all in itself, but there's no doubt in my mind there's other powers out in the world. Mine is Jesus Christ and God. And it was just absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, it's a whole nother story, but I did have a real big awakening. And the next morning I was basically Freedom George. I was reborn, and I started talking differently. about love and about freedom and about all this stuff. And I just knew a whole bunch of things I didn't know before. I just knew it, I don't know what the heck. So I come up with freedom. I started screaming freedom. I started painting my face up like Mel Gibson, and I got a sword and stuff where I
Awesome.
pulled it out. I pulled it out at the whistle stop, and I ended up getting a ticket there. And the cops tried to arrest me. They thought I was a crazy man. Well, lots of people thought I was going crazy, including my own family. But I was never so clear about anything in my life. I actually have the first Freedom truck in all of Canada. Nobody's proven it wrong. I still have the Freedom on the side of my truck. I started everything had Freedom on it. I started selling gear, giving gear away and stuff just to get the word freedom out there. I was at the legislature all painted up, and I would grab the mic. Spirit took over me, and I was just yelling at people, "You're all going to be screaming freedom. Mark my words." This is before anybody was doing it. I said, "You're all going to be doing it. It'll be hanging from windows. It'll be everywhere you look." And people thought I was losing, like, completely out of my mind, but here we are today. And
the leader, people who are ahead of the curve and who eventually become the leaders of movements at the beginnings of things when nobody else understands what's going on, those leaders are often thought to be crazy people because most other people aren't paying attention, right?
And there wasn't many awake then. It was discouraging too, because I second guessed myself many times, like, am I doing the right thing here? Am I really going crazy? And I've got pictures. I prayed for signs, and I have pictures that will blow your mind on my phone after I asked for signs and I got them. So I just kept pushing forward, and that's it. And 2021, going back to that, I woke up crying one morning, and I was like, what's wrong with me? I was like a little baby. And so I prayed, and I did my thing, and I opened up my phone, and there was Pat King on his way to the legislature in Edmonton with a whole bunch of paperwork, evidence, and stuff. And he was going there to occupy it for 20 some days, and they have to look at this paperwork or whatever, right? And I'm like, holy man, there it is. And I had only seen Pat King at some events. We didn't really know each other. Actually, when he seen me at the whistle stop, all painted up like the old grandpa off of Braveheart, he said, "Who is this crazy guy, man? He's lost his mind. Like, he didn't want to have nothing to do with me."
Wow, that's quite a statement coming from Mr. King.
Yeah, he's like, wow, but I mean, that was at the beginning, right? And I'm walking around with a real sword, and that picture went viral across Earth. Everybody was kind of like that guy in the States there with the hat on and all painted up and stuff like that. So there was memes made about me and that. But anyway, so I knew that was it. That's why I was having some sort of an episode, and I'm like, there it is. And I was like, I gotta go. So I packed up the truck, camping gear, tents, and whatever I could take, barbecues and everything. And I went and see my dad and my brother. And I said, listen, I gotta go. Can you take care of my place, take care of my dog? He's like, what are you doing? I said, I gotta go to the city. I said, you'll understand later. And we went. At first they wouldn't let us do anything. We tried to set up camp there. I was always allowed at the rallies to set up my Freedom tent and sell my gear and do speeches and all that stuff and get the Freedom word out there. They didn't give me any hassle, but I showed up there this time with Pat King, and no, I wasn't allowed to set that tent up anymore. They weren't having it, So we tried and tried and tried, and they just kept blocking us and coming up with new rules and, go get a permit. Oh no, we're not going to give you a permit, and just giving us the runaround. So eventually some Native people come there, and we ended up bringing Grandma Nancy, a clan mother. They approached us because we were going every day, no matter what. We were there on the ledge. People were coming down. We didn't stop going for the first week, and then the second week we ended up bringing Grandma Nancy in her teepee.
Right, and when you say, I hate to interrupt you, George, there's
that's okay.
A lot of Americans and international listeners who won't know what you mean by the ledge. That's Edmonton and Alberta slang for the Alberta legislature.
Yeah.
You're not actually standing on a ledge like you're gonna fall off.
Sometimes it seems that way though. Yeah, it's the legislature building, right? So, and Pat had a whole bunch of evidence, and he had put liens on a bunch of stuff. A lawyer had put a bunch of liens on a bunch of these COVID incentives that companies took to push the COVID incentive. He had it all, and we wanted Jason Kenney at the time to come and speak with us. We wanted answers, right? And they never did come. But we ended up with 5 teepees and a huge camp right on the legislature grounds. We were doing ceremonies, doing healing. People were coming down. We had huge rallies on the weekends. I got pictures of what was going on in the skies with the Northern Lights, even while we were doing ceremonies. It was very, very powerful, very spiritual. And of course, on the day 22, they come in that morning. We're sleeping in the teepee, and all of a sudden it was just daylight at like 5 a.m. And I opened up the teepee door, and there was just cops everywhere, and they had set up huge light towers and everything and turned them on, right? And we were just surrounded, and they ended up dragging us all off the legislature. They saved the teepees for last, and they come in there, and I always carry a knife on my hip. You know, I'm a farm boy, so I always had my knife, and they were tearing everything down, and I was tired. I was having a nap in my teepee, and the cops come in, and they just come right in there. And of course, my natural reaction is to grab for my knife, and that cop just grabbed me. You're not going to need that. Let's go.
Oh, wow.
And they just drug us off. They took the teepee down while Grandma Nancy was sitting inside there. She had evidence and stuff too there. It's a long story, but we tried. That was my first big event, and it was pretty crazy. And that's I started getting much more popular at that moment, standing up against the tyranny and doing whatever we could, speaking the truth and trying to bring everybody together at the same time. There's so much divide, even in the races themselves, there's divide within certain races, well, all races, but it's just hard.
No, well, not everybody agrees about everything, and that's fine, but there's got to be some sort of basic conditions upon which we all agree in order for society to function. And a couple of those conditions were pushed to their limits under the COVID regime. If you're in Canada, your charter rights to association, travel, and many other things were abrogated in the name of a virus that, if you were under the age of 60 and had no comorbidities, you were almost guaranteed to survive if you got it. So it was, instead of focusing their concern on the people that needed to watch out for themselves and make sure they had everything in place for those people, they went overboard and effectively shut society down. And in the process, poured acid over all kinds of social bonds that take decades to build up. Communities ripped asunder. And, Trudeau and the gang basically stabbed Canada in the heart, which brings us to Freedom Convoy, January 2022. Seems like you're a natural candidate to join up and head to Ottawa.
Yeah, you bet. And I became a trucker after they shut down the mill that I was working at up here, 2005, I believe it was. So I've been a trucker for quite some time, working in the oil field mostly. And then the Freedom Convoy come up, and of course I was really, really like best friends with Pat King at this point. Now we hit it right off once we got together at the legislature, and he's my best friend now. And we can't talk though, still to this day. He's not allowed to talk to me, by the way. So
really, so is that one of his conditions for being out?
Yeah, you bet. Not allowed to talk to me. Yeah.
When are those going to be raised? What's the deal with Mr. King's legal proceedings?
I believe now it's in May. It was supposed to be in November, but he pushed it back himself because, of course, the justice system, they play those games, and right before the beginning of November, they come and dump a whole bunch more stuff on him.
Oh, of course, right? That's their stalling tactic.
Yeah.
They don't do disclosure until the last possible minute to give themselves the advantage.
That's right. So they did that to him. So he had no choice but to push it back. So it's in May now. He's been on house arrest. At 10 o'clock, he's got to be home, and they check up on him. They basically harass him.
And all
Not
of
allowed to
it,
talk to me.
and all of this is because Mr. King has some opinions that are not shared by the majority, from what I understand.
Yeah, and they're saying he was a convoy leader. He helped out getting the convoy across. He was a very big part in it, and so was I. We were at the front most of the time from Alberta, and he had his platform right, which without him it wouldn't have happened the way that it happened. I think he's got 380,000 followers or something like that, over 300,000 followers. So it really got big online, and then that's where I had just started hauling logs. I just got a new job for the winter, and I think I worked like 1 week, and then that convoy come up, and Pat's like, "Man, I need you. You gotta come. You gotta come." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, all right, we're going." And I didn't take a big truck. I actually took my Freedom truck, my pickup, which come in very handy over there.
Right. Yep.
If there's pictures of it all over the place. I just helped. We had radios. I was leapfrogging all over the place, going across the country, helping people out. I had tools and whatnot, and and just doing what I had to do. I'd race ahead in the convoy to go clear out the areas where we were going to be stopping, and or go and check and see what the cops were doing up there. Just all kinds of. I was busy. It was very, very tiring. People don't realize how hard we actually worked during those 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, no, the logistics of getting thousands of people across the country in one cohesive unit, that's like moving the military around. That's a big deal. And then maintaining trucks, keeping everybody fed, just dealing with everything that went down in Ottawa. One of the things that like the media and the city of Ottawa and the government were all surprised by, I remember from the coverage, was like, how is it like these people are all able to be here? Like smarter people amongst the cops and the government were like, this is a pretty well-oiled machine. Well, yeah, we're truckers. We do logistics. This is our job, is like making stuff happen, moving things around, making sure equipment is maintained, getting it done. Like you couldn't have picked like a better group of people to try and pull off a protest like this, because they're actually competent people that get shit done.
Yeah, exactly. Common sense people, really, that have grown up working, that have they're not reading books. They're doing, they are, but they're doing stuff with their hands and their minds, and they're actually out there doing things so they can solve problems and fix things and
well,
like
what
said,
it is,
the logistics of it.
They're not theory cells like maybe some of our antagonists in Antifa or various social justice movements, where all of those people, for the most part, are pretty well pampered, never had to work too hard for a living, never had to break a sweat, very little contact with, the blue collar world of actually making material reality function. So yeah, whereas those folks, they're pretty well disorganized. The only reason that they exist is they have the backing of the regime, right? Like Trudeau and all the rest of these governments around the world have all been infected with a certain particular mind virus. So when groups like Antifa or BLM have protests, they can burn cities down and destroy shit, and nothing ever happens. The media doesn't say anything about it. Oh, it's for social justice. But like, you guys show up in Ottawa are totally peaceful, but because you're outside power, you're not a designated client group of the regime, you are to be attacked, you are to be smeared, you are to be punished 2 years later still for daring to question the government, right? Because like, protest is actually a chimera. It doesn't actually exist. If they don't want it to, if they want to smear you, if they want you to be dealt with, they'll just do it, right? And I mean, we see that all around us. Look what happened to your buddy Pat. I might not agree with some things Pat says, but like they're making his life hell now. Chris and Tamara still in process in Ottawa. Harold Jonker, Guy Meisner, this woman named Christine Decaire, acquitted of all charges involved from being in Ottawa. They're dragging her back to court. They're appealing her acquittal. Like they're just punishing these guys and the four boys from Coots, Like this,
Yeah,
the
and
Freedom
the
Convoy
worst
is not over.
the worst part about it is they're using our money that they tax us to pay these people to do this. You know, like we got to think about that. And they're literally taking our money and they're using it against us to kill us and beat us up and throw us in jail and break us, right? Like they're dragging us through these systems where you're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and nothing's happening and they're putting it off. It's absolutely disgusting. Our justice system is corrupt. It's horrible. And we're seeing that with the Coots 4 that are still in jail, 700 and some days now, 706 or 707, I'm not sure. You know, no bail, no trial, no nothing. They're 100% Trudeau political prisoners. And there's no doubt in my mind that he's got his hand all over that. We've seen what happened in the bail hearing for Chris. You know, we're fighting a very powerful, very rich entity, unelected entity, by the way, because Trudeau is just a puppet. He's doing what he's told to do.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, and even if you do factor in the election, like I think in the 2021 election he called, which burned through $600 million to not change very much from the previous election, only a small number of seats changed hands, and he remained in a minority government. Only, I think it was 57 or 58% of eligible voters voted, and he only got like 30 or 31% of the vote. And because of the way Parliament's cracked out and because of the NDP and the Conservative seats and whatever, if not for Jagmeet Singh, Trudeau probably would have got confidence motioned out by the Conservatives in the Bloc by now. But without that deal he's still got that deal with Singh, so we're still suffering under him.
Yeah, 100%. And even with the Bloc now too, right? We've seen it. Like they're all in it together over there. It's really sad.
You know what's funny about the Bloc Québécois, right? So, you know, your friend Pat has been accused of wrong think and holding distasteful opinions. Whatever. I got nothing to say about it. I've never listened to the guy, never met him. You know, and you know, according to Tamara and BJ and all that, they asked him to stand down and he wasn't really part of the management in Ottawa. Fine, whatever. But the bigger point here is that the Bloc Québécois, they are secularists, right? And they are against immigrants moving to Quebec and displaying their religious paraphernalia. They want everybody to be French and to accept Quebec culture. So the Bloc Québécois are the xenophobic nationalists that the left is always complaining about. Yet, in the 2019 election, they came back from the dead. They only had like 4 seats, and now they've got 20-something seats in Parliament because the media basically ignored their platform and attacked Maxime Bernier and the PPC and called them Nazis because Bernier said 150,000 immigrants a year, same as when Trudeau got elected in 2015. That was his policy. We can't increase these numbers because the country can't stand it. The media tried to destroy Maxime Bernier, called him a racist and a Nazi and all this crap. Meanwhile, the Bloc Québécois, who have legitimate ethnic policies in their platform about maintaining Quebec culture, forcing people to only speak French, not allowing Muslims to wear headscarves, all this stuff, they come back from the dead. Gee,
yeah.
Double standard much?
Yeah, 100%. Double standards everywhere. They all talk out both sides of their mouths.
Oh, dude.
You know, it's disgusting. We can talk politics forever. It's just, I don't even really much bother because I know they're all corrupt and I know they're all in it together. I really do. So it's like we got to change the system. And right. I would like a system where we get to vote on the bills that they're trying to pass, not the House. You want to pass a bill? Okay, make your bill, and then put the vote out to the public.
Yeah, I think they call that a plebiscite. Yeah, they're afraid of that. That's actual democracy.
Yeah, they don't want democracy.
they can't have that. So speaking about democracy and plebiscites and bills and politics, obviously you were in the nation's capital in Ottawa. epic journey across the country with all those people. You get to Ottawa. Tell us about your experience in Ottawa, and then like what led to your legal troubles.
So it was a very, very good experience. It was very heartwarming. It was very uplifting, and it was very busy for us. Like we didn't stop. Basically, lots of people obviously looked up to us and stuff like that. And I know that Tamara and them had asked Pat to step back in when we got to Ontario, kind of thing. Pat was getting some death threats at the time, and he confided in just talking to them, and that's when they kind of, like, there's another part of the story to all that. But anyways, so we ended up down there helping out as many people. We were taking donations and stuff, and I got live video of me dishing out cash to the truckers and helping people out and everything. Thanks for the donations, everyone that got through to me. And it was just it was really busy and very uplifting and very cold. It was pretty cold, but we were Canadian and we just kept pushing forward. So we would every day we would be somewhere different. We'd be at the Coventry camp, helping out there, seeing what's going on, doing live videos. What do you need? What do you need for help? And then we'd be over at I think it's Sir J. McDonald. I think it was one of the stops, J. McDonald. I believe that's where it was. There was a camp there as well because they blocked the road and people got stuck there. So we were there and we were on the streets and we were all over and doing interviews. People wanted interviews and stuff like that. And there's more. Since Pat still has trial, there's a lot more I'd like to say, but I just can't right now. It'll
Yeah,
come out later,
no, fair enough, man. Don't get yourself in
we
any more trouble. Don't get Pat in any more trouble. I get it. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But like we did lots of stuff off the cameras, right? But when it was all going down, okay, my dog, get out of here. Go on, get. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
So when it was all going down and we knew the cops were coming pretty soon, we had caught wind that they were in a certain area. The cops were congregating, and it was called the Infinity Center. So we went to the Infinity Center, and oh my goodness, we found them. And this was a couple days before they actually come out that Friday. I believe it was the Wednesday night, or it was Thursday. But anyways, so me and Pat drive in the parking lot in my Freedom truck, and we didn't have no video going. And we were like, oh my Lord, look at all these vans and buses and different cop cars and vehicles and this and that. And we're driving around in the parking lot, and an unmarked car with two guys in it, and they're both bald-headed, kind of cop-looking people, and they just drove up and just cut us off. And they're like, hey, you can't be in here. And I said, oh, sorry, we're just lost. And the cop said, whatever, Freedom, get out of here. so we drove out. We went regrouped, and we come back that night, and it's all on video. We stayed there all night long, and we were up quite a few nights all night long, but I can't speak of a lot of that stuff we were doing. But that night we watched the buses pull up, and they were just full of cops, and they were all getting off, and they were all walking in there with all their gear into there, and we're like, oh my Lord. So we're like, hey, what do we do? Like, everyone is sleeping. Like, are they coming this morning? Or are they coming right now? We know they're coming, but when? And I'm like, okay, so, and it was my decision. People got mad at us for my decision and started going after Pat. But basically, do we go and wake everybody up and tell them? And they're going to be mad if it doesn't happen? Or we don't tell anybody and we don't wake anybody up, and then they do come and they're going to be even madder at us for not telling them. So I made the call. I said, we got to go down and warn people. So that morning, the sun was coming up, and we were honking horns, and we were getting on the radios, and we were waking everybody up. Cops are coming. Possibly they're here. We went and found them, and people got up, and they didn't come that day, but they did come the next morning. And that's where it started, the next morning. And I was right on the front lines there the whole time. Very tired, very cold.
Yeah, my buddy Tim. So I've got a real good, I got a business associate from Alberta. He's from down around Brooks, Rolling Hills, neck of the woods. And he came out with his tractor. He got Kenworth W900 and his buddy Clifford's triaxle walking floor like chip trailer.
Yeah.
And they've got stickers and decals and painting and all these messages all over it. And then he sat right on Wellington Street and everyone signed it and it was beautiful. And Tim had such a great time. I went and talked to him a couple times. My friends went and talked to him a couple times. I got him an interview on this TV, this like internet magazine in the UK called Unheard. And anyway, when he heard about the Emergencies Act coming down, he sort of knew that they were going to start seizing stuff. And his issue was like he didn't want Clifford to lose his trailer. He didn't want, because he's like, yeah, it's my truck, that's my responsibility, but the trailer's Clifford's, and we can't have the cops seizing it. So like, I got to get out of here. So I think on the early morning of the 14th, before they actually declared the Emergencies Act, he like backed his truck and trailer out somehow, got all twisted around and left and drove straight from Ottawa all the way back to Alberta nonstop. And escaped the crackdown.
Yeah, you bet. And you know, the truth is coming out about that Emergency Act and how it was invoked and what they did to the Coots boys, right? And that's how they did it. That's how they justified actually doing it. And there's a big story about all that. But you know, they were coming and we were pushing back and we were holding our ground. They only made it half a block that first day. That's it, because we had the numbers down there. But that's when they really started blocking it off and calling it the red zone, right? So they weren't letting people in. Now, they made it up to the Rideau, and that's as far as they wanted to go. That's when they ran everybody over, people with horses and stuff. I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm very good friends with Candace, actually. I was before she even got ran over. I actually was the one who got her back to her car after we got her up off the ground. And that's how they pushed us back far enough. Now, as soon as they got to that Rideau entrance, that's where they stopped that night. And they put up a fence across there, and they only had about a dozen cops guarding that. And the rest of them were inside eating and drinking. And I watched the videos that come out of there. They were laughing at us and saying all kinds of shit. A lot of them enjoyed what they were doing to their own citizens. You know, the videos that I watched after were very heartbreaking, that these cops from across the country, and I even seen them from BC over there. And
yeah, I heard that they actually changed them out. Like a bunch of cops that were there at the beginning of Freedom Convoy, that were hanging around for the first week or two in Ottawa, they actually got moved out because those cops had become friendly with all the truckers, with the block captains, with all the people that were there dug in. The police realized that like everybody was totally peaceful. There was like multiple food tents. Everyone was getting fed, you know, techno parties at night, hockey games. There was like zero bad things going on. Crime went down in Ottawa. You know, there was more fun going on in downtown Ottawa than they'd ever seen. And a lot of the cops were like simpatico with this. And Trudeau and the RCMP and the higher ups all knew this, and so they had to change the cops out and get new ones in who had no compunction about cracking skulls. Right? They like had to bring in the psychopaths.
Yeah, and they also got paid, right? There's actually that one video of the one cop bragging about him paying for his pool.
Yes, I saw that.
Yep. Yeah, with overtime, right? So they got paid very well to come and do what they did, and you know the devil's going to catch up with them. I mean, God's going to catch up with them. They already got the devil, and
they have time. They have time to get right with the Lord. They do have time.
Yeah, and that's they need to start sticking up for the citizens and honoring that oath, even though it is an oath to the crown, which we don't agree with either. But they need to understand that they're just being used, and when this reset comes down. This digital ID and digital money and all this stuff, they're not hiding from that. I mean, they're being used right now, and then they're gonna get it too, right? Like what do you think? What do you think's gonna happen here, guys and girls? You need to stand up with us. You need to stand up with the people. And so that was the first night they pushed, the first day. Now, the second day, I knew that early in the morning, I was telling everybody, I said, tomorrow morning, I said, we got to have everyone down here, like, get back in here, because this is when they're going to make a big move, right? Before, and of course they did. They made huge ground really fast, right early in the morning, because the numbers weren't down there. The people couldn't get back in because the roads were all blocked off everywhere. And of course, they're blaming us for the traffic delays and the roads being blocked off, but it was actually them. Right? Of course, they spin it like it was us causing all that problems, but it was them.
Yeah, you guys didn't put up all those concrete barricades.
No, exactly. Yeah. And then so the second day was hard. I was kicking tear gas back at them and all kinds of jazz. They were just going nuts on us, man. They shot the one reporter there in the leg with tear gas, and they were beating people with the butts of their guns, and like it got right crazy. And then their batons, like it's all on video. People have seen it. And we got to a point there where everybody was kind of pretty much gone, and I was completely frozen, soaking wet, tired. So I got somebody to get me back into Gatineau. I said, I got to get some food. I need to get some sleep. I was like, I can't go anymore. So I got back into Gatineau, which took quite a while to get into. And 4 hours sleep. I wake up, I look at my phone. There's still people downtown fighting, pushing. And I'm like, so I run downstairs, take me back in there, take me back in there. They're like, no, George, no, you're going to get arrested. Don't go back in there. I said, well, then I'm walking. Shit. And I went and got dressed and like, okay, we'll take you in. And it was actually Pat's girlfriend's brother. It was his vehicle. So we get back across the bridge. He's taking me back in, and I started my live video. Well, it wasn't 2 minutes after I started that live video, this black unmarked car pulls up beside me, looks at me, sees it's me, pulls in behind, or pulls right in front of us, cuts us off, and then another car come in and blocked us in. And that's when they arrested me. They didn't read me my rights, nothing. I got out. It's all on video too. A lot of it's recording because they put my phone down on the truck, but it was still live. And I asked them why I was being arrested, and mischief. They said, "Oh, like for what? We don't know, just mischief." And that's why I went to jail.
It seems like
they took me there.
It's for people that aren't in Canada. Mischief sounds like that doesn't sound like much of a charge. And the term just means like you're up to no good. It's sort of like a general term. It's not really well defined. But in Canada, if you get convicted of it and the Crown wants to, the maximum penalty for that is 10 years in prison.
Yep. The problem with mischief is they can put, it's like an umbrella. They can put whatever they want under it. So they're using it nonstop now up here. Yeah, they don't. And then as you're in your trial or your thing or whatever, they can add more to it. Right. And so, yeah, mischief. I go to the cop station there. I get dragged into an interrogation room where I didn't even hold back. They pulled me in there, and the guy's and I just said, "Listen, you can't stop what's coming." I said, "In the end of this, God wins," and I'm like, just telling them, like, I didn't even care, like whatever. I'm in jail now, and so they ended up using that. They did use it in my bail hearing, that recording of me with what I was saying, and how passionate I was about everything that was happening and going down. So from there, I went to OCDC in Edmonton, Ottawa Carleton Detention Center, and they put me into a quarantine pod. And now a pod is like, basically in the jails, they've come up with a circular system with the control center in the middle. And then you got A pod, B pod, C pod all around.
Yeah, that's the original. That's the original. That's where the term panopticon comes from, because the people in the middle can see everybody. That was originally designed by this like English dude. It's this old English prison design. It's been around forever, and that's what they mean by panopticon. They can see everybody at all times.
That's right. And so I get put into a cell in there, and I had to quarantine for. They didn't let me out for days. It was like 13 days or something. They were still going with their quarantine BS. And it was really shitty. You're just in that cell. You can't get out or nothing. And so they wanted to, in order for me to get out of that cell, they wanted me to take that swab up my nose. So they come to my door and they wanted me to take that swab, and I wouldn't do it. I wasn't having it. So they're like, okay, well, you're staying in here then. And I'm like, fine, whatever. Bring me some pencils and stuff. And I had freedom written on every single brick on that cell. 75 freedoms down one side of the door frame. It was all around the door frame, the mirrors, the beds, the ceiling. Everywhere I had freedom. I had a 7-foot cross, a 3-foot cross, and a 2-foot cross. Big crosses on the walls. And they were finally going to move me because I wouldn't take the test and whatever. They're going to move you to a dorm. So they come there, and the guard opens the door, and he goes, "Holy," he says, and I just looked at him, "Freedom?" And he goes, "I'm so fucking sick of hearing freedom." And I said, "Well, let me out then." Because I had people rattling the freaking doors and everything because everybody knew me from the news, right? They're like, "Yeah, that's the guy." They were all screaming freedom in the jail. I had them all riled up in there.
Awesome. Oh, man, that's so based. Good for you, brother.
Yeah. So they take me to a dorm, and I was only in there for about a week. And I get because they wanted me to fight inside that dorm, and I wouldn't do it because it's like 28 bunk beds basically. Well, 28 people can sleep in the dorm, so you got 14 bunk beds or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like real political. You know, you got the people at the top, and they're the ones in charge, and you got to give so much this food to the cleaners and this and that. And they wanted me to fight, and I wouldn't do it. So the one guy there, second in charge, he kind of come at me and kick me out. And what you do is you go rap on the window, right? Pack up your bag, which is your sheet, and whatever food and whatever other knickknacks you got from in jail, your paper, your pens, and whatever. And they go bang on the window. So I banged on the window. They're kicking me out. And the first thing out of that guard's mouth, when I got out there, he goes, "Why didn't you fight? You're a big guy." And I just looked at him and I said, "That's exactly what you guys want." He said, "No, it's not happening." So they stuffed me in another room for a while till they found me a place. And then they took me back to a pod, which was a different one, and threw me in a cell that already had 2 people in it. So I had a mattress on the floor beside the toilet.
Yeah, that's been happening to some of the Coots guys. I was speaking, I was speaking with one of their advocates here recently, and when they get moved around, sometimes the preparations and logistics for the prisoners are not up to snuff. And one of the boys was stuck in one of these rooms, just like you said, one bunk bed for 2 guys, and he was the 3rd guy, and they put him in there. So he's on the floor, and the one other guy in there was like going through withdrawal and sick and puking all over the place. So this poor bastard who no bail, no trial, political prisoner is stuck in there with real criminals and drug addicts that are going through withdrawal and puking all over the place. And he's basically got to sleep next to a toilet. That's how that's your punishment from Trudeau. Here, you want to peacefully protest and demand redress from the government, as is your right under the charter? Fuck you. Sleep with a guy puking.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
fucking
it's
fuck Justin. Sad. Fuck Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Fucking cocksucker.
Yeah, he's a real piece of work, that's for sure. But again, he's just doing what he's told. Right? We don't elect them; they get selected. The elections to me don't mean nothing. Your vote don't count. Those people are groomed and put into place by them, by the elites and the unelected entities out there, like the WEF and the WHO and the rest of them crazy wacko people that want to decarb. We're the carbon, by the way, people. Yeah. We're the carbon that they want to get rid of.
Yeah, I don't know how old you are, George, but when I was younger, so I'm going to be 45 probably when this podcast comes out. My birthday is February 13th. So when they started, I was celebrating my 43rd birthday when they started cracking skulls and coots. So when I was growing up in the late 1990s, you know, you had the World Trade Organization and the IMF and the battle in Seattle, and everybody on the left was against foreign globalist organizations, foreign banksters, the Americans, whoever, interfering in other people's business, interfering in the sovereignty of unique nation states, right? The left was against that vociferously. I was with them. I went to anti-Iraq war protests in 2002 and 2003, right? Like, I've been the same ever since. Now, in 2024, the left is for all of this stuff, right? I mean, not all of them. They're not a monolith. There's some good leftists out there. I know quite a few of them, actually. But for the most part, the leftists that are in control are now for international, transnational, unaccountable, unelected corporate bureaucrats who are going to dictate to the rest of the world how things are going to be, right? And now, if you protest that, you just get dismissed as a conspiracy thinking right winger. I haven't changed. I've always been against that shit, right? I didn't change. They changed.
And you should be. And you should be against that stuff, right? Like, they caused those wars. They go over there. Now I heard that Iraqi war was because they actually the reason for it was not only oil, but was for a bunch of ancient artifacts. That
that's a new one. I haven't heard about that. So
tell me. But the thing is that you got to understand that these people they fund both sides of it. They want it. Destabilize these places and steal their natural resources and kill them.
Right. Yeah. It's hedging their bets for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you're still in jail. Did you get charged with anything else besides mischief?
There was like 10 charges, counseling, mischief. They're all mischief charges. There was 10 of them. And
wow.
then all of a sudden they co-accused Pat and I with them, and we didn't understand what that was all about. But we had no contact anyways. We were both in different spots. And then a month in, it was about 8 in the morning. My door opens up.
You were in jail for a month?
Actually 4 months.
No
so,
shit.
A month at OCDC. So that's where I'm going with this. So they opened my door and they said, "Pack your stuff. You're being moved." And I said, "What?" I was like, "To where?" "You're leaving. Pack your stuff." And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? So I literally had to go down and go through the whole process of being discharged from the jail. And what was running through my head was not good. I'm like, oh, this is it. They're going to make me fucking disappear. They're going to like, what's going on here? And so I went through it and they threw me in this meat wagon there, and with the little holes on the sides and drove me to Napanee. Napanee is home of the Quinte Detention Center. There was another jail. They were moving me for whatever reason. I don't know, but thank God, because I gained a lot of weight in there. I got in there, and it was one of the 2 jails still in Ontario that have home-cooked meals. They got their own kitchen. So you got full-on meals, like then desserts and everything. So it was actually God sent me there, I believe. I thought, so I did 3 months in there. And now I learned a lot about jail. I learned how to make alcohol out of the products that they give you. I learned all about meth and opioids and stuff like that, because that's the real pandemic in those jails. And the people that are coming in, the stories that they have, the scabs they have all over their bodies. And like, wow. I ended up getting a cross tattooed on my arm, learned how to do jailhouse tats, and I never stopped working in there. I changed quite a few people's lives, actually. But the story that inside the Quinte Detention Center that stands out the most to me is I was talking to all of them about these shots and how bad they were and stuff, right? And all of a sudden, one morning, they come to the cage. Anybody want their booster? Anybody want their booster? and this guy beside me jumps up out of bed. "I'll get my booster." And I said, whoa. I said, haven't you been listening to anything that I've been saying? He was like, well, I already got my first 2 shots, he says. And I was like, okay, whatever. So he goes and gets his booster. They go across the hallway, which was the girls' dorm with the needles. The next day, this guy wakes up and he's completely covered in a rash from head to toe. And about the same time, 10 minutes after that, all of a sudden, all the paramedics and the guards are rushing to the girls' dorm, and they come wheeling a girl out having convulsions and seizures in a wheelchair. And I looked and I just yelled at all of them, "See? What did I tell you?"
Holy
Like
shit.
right in front of their eyes. And that was it. I think everybody in that range that I was on was never going to get another one of those shots again in their life. They watched it in real time. You know? Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it was 116 days. You know, and they jerked me around too. I ended up getting a good expensive lawyer from Alberta, which ended up costing me 30 grand in lawyer fees. Thank God for my mom, who took care of all my bills and child support and everything while I was gone. You know, I ended up with a $50,000 bill when I got out of jail. And they run you through the ringer in your bail hearings and stuff. They weren't going to let me out. Trudeau brought out a Hackett was her name, and she's a Liberal appointed judge. She was in semi-retirement, but Trudeau brought her out just for me. And you know, they were never letting me out. So my lawyer, basically out of all the charges, all 10 of them, he goes, listen, he said, they got you on one mischief charge because the truckers asked me to do a live to honk the horns for 7 minutes while they did a march around the Jericho march around the building 7 times. So at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, we're going to honk the horns for 7 minutes in honor of the Jericho march. Well, that's when that injunction was in, right? They put that noise injunction in so we couldn't honk our horns anymore. So they had me on that right on video, inciting mischief. So my lawyer said, listen, I could probably beat all these, but this one I might not beat. Do you really want to pay me over $100,000 and have weeks of trial, lose your social media, be on lockdown at home with your surety, not be able to do anything? Or do you want to take a mischief charge and walk out? I said, sold. I'll take the mischief charge.
Yeah,
So
well, the
that's
thing
what I
is,
did.
this is one of the really pernicious aspects of the practice of lawfare, right? They throw all these charges at you. Most of them are spurious, and even the ones that are like possibly within the realm of being legit aren't really legit because it's over something fucking stupid like honking your horn, right? And so you're actually a victim of this Ottawa Citizens Coalition, who are also trying to sue the Freedom Convoy for $400 million in a civil suit, because the woman who's the lead plaintiff on this is this Zexi Lee, this like what 24 or 25-year-old civil servant, fucking diversity hire, never worked a day in her life, never had to sweat for nothing, privileged piece of shit, and she's the one that managed to get that honking injunction against you guys, right? And so now they're at it again to try and draw blood from a stone. You know, I mean, this paints a picture of the class dimensions of this crap, right? Like, here are regular, hardworking Canadian people, the guys out in the bush all winter in Alberta, working weeks and months straight until spring thaw, fighting the elements just to try and earn their living. So these pampered, privileged pieces of shit like Zexi Lee can sit in the fucking heat of her apartment in Ottawa and, oh no, people want their freedom and their bodily sovereignty. We can't have that. Fucking fuck her too, man. I've been swearing a lot. I usually don't swear, but I've been working on some stuff, and I've been talking to a lot of people and finding more and more people who are still being punished. Like, that's all I've been doing for the last couple of weeks, is just discovering all these new cases. And I'm just, I've fucking had enough, man. I'm furious about this shit. The government's literally declared class war on the Freedom Convoy, and they're attacking you guys. And it's being led by the worst, most pampered, privileged, fucking laptop class email job assholes on planet Earth. Fuck all of them.
Yeah. And the funny thing is like, these people, they're against pipelines or they're against oil and gas. You know, well, okay, well, go shut your gas line off to your house then. No more furnace for you. No more hot water tank for you. Like, where do you think this stuff comes from? Right? They're clueless. They're brainwashed, and you know, they're just out there. A lot of them don't even know where their food comes from. Crying out loud.
No, you know
You
where it
know?
comes from? Do you know where most of their food comes from? California, Mexico, off of boats overseas, and they came in
Yeah.
refrigerated containers or some other way. And then guess who brought it to the Ontario produce terminal or the fucking Metro distribution warehouse or
Yeah.
Sobeys distribution warehouse? A bunch of fucking truckers driving trucks that burn diesel fuel, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
wake the fuck
Everything.
up.
Absolutely everything you own, your house, the sticks that are in your walls, all of it is brought to you by truck. Your cell phone, the shirt on your back was brought by a truck. So it's just absolutely ridiculous, man. It blows my mind how the way people think. And I don't blame them. I blame the unelected elites. I blame Hollywood for their movies and their subliminal messaging and their programming and the news, which is paid for, that completely brainwash people. It's not their fault that they are that way, but it is their fault that they're not getting out of that way of
No,
thinking.
no, 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 no.
With all the evidence that's out there now, you're still thinking that way. That's what blows me away. That's where I'm like, okay, you're an idiot.
Like I say, people are allowed to be idiots and believe what they want. I'm willing to extend that to them. Unfortunately, they're not willing to extend that to us for having these little things called principles. Okay,
Yeah.
so George,
Yeah.
your lawyer tells you to cop a plea deal or just accept guilt on one of those charges.
Yeah.
And then there's the famous video. So how did you manage to get all your supporters rallying for you before coming out of jail?
Well, I was allowed phone calls inside, right? You could use the phones as long as you had money to pay for it. You had money on your phone, then you could phone from I think it was 10 in the morning till 10 at night or something. You could phone as many times as you want. So I had people on the outside that knew kind of what was going on, but we couldn't spill the beans totally. But I mean, and they knew that day was my day. So people just knew that to be there in support, whether I got out or not, kind of thing, right? And I had this shirt on when I come out, and once I come out, I was actually sitting in a room after the verdict was done, and even that judge said, I could tell Mr. Billings is really firm in his stance and what he believes in, judging by that shirt he's wearing.
All right.
And my pants wouldn't fit anymore. I gained 40 pounds in 4 months. Oh my God, I had the buttons were off. But so I come out and I'm walking. I'm in that room, and the one guard comes up and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna rush your paperwork for you right now. Can you get those people away from the front door, please?" And I'm like, if you rush my paperwork and get me out of here, I'll definitely get them away from the front door, right? So when I was coming down, everybody was seeing me, and the person was on the inside, passed me that Canada flag, and I walked out screaming freedom. And my freedom yell is quite popular. Nobody screams it like me or can scream it for as long as me. I did it for weeks. It kept my voice. I mean, I just designed for it. And I come out, and right in that video in the Canada flag, you could see my fear God, not COVID, right in the middle of that. There's pictures of it out there, and I did walk away, and I got people away from the front door, and yeah, it was nice. It was overwhelming to see all those people, but at the same time, like, I had to get out of there. I just got out of jail, and I did what I could and talked to as many people, and then got on the move and just basically got out of Ottawa. I was scared that they were going to trump up some more charges or something, and throw you back in again. At this point, you're like, what? Like, they're going to do anything, right? So just get me out of here, get me to a safe place. And so we got to my friend's place, and he had my pickup, my Freedom truck, because they didn't get my truck. So he had it, and he had to do a bunch of repairs to the front end of my truck for me, because we were over curbs, into parking lots, over meridians. Like, thank God I had my Chevy over there, because she took a shit kicking. And he fixed it up for me to make it roadworthy to come home. And that first night, I couldn't sleep, because I was so used to and conditioned to sleeping with all these people inside jail. In the silence and in a comfortable bed and stuff. I couldn't sleep. I never slept all night.
Oh, wow.
So it was a learning dealing with the trauma and stuff and what they did, I guess, and your brain is just racing in that. So, and that was it. Then we drove back across the country, and I had lots of stops on the way home. People wanted to see me and talk to me and stuff. So, we traveled and stopped and stayed here and stayed there, and the support was overwhelming. I got home here, and there was lots of people here too, in my hometown, waiting for me to return. So it was, but it still works me up, even just talking about it. I have my book that I wrote, that I journaled a lot, and so I can always remember. But it's still hard. I missed my daughter's grad. They made sure that Pat and I missed our kids' grads. We both had kids graduating. They made sure that my release was after that graduation was over. My lawyer could not get it before that. No way, no how.
I mean, again, it's all punishment, right? So, like, look what just happened with Chris Carbert. So Carbert's one of the Coots 4 guys. He launches an application for bail again, and the courts allow the application to go through. And then all the paperwork goes on. And what do? They announce a court date to review the bail application on December 20th. So they dangle it in front of him like a fucking piece of cheese in front of a mouse, right? Hey, you just might get out for Christmas. Then he goes to court on December 20th. They put it off till after Christmas. Then the next court date, they put it off till January. And then they put it off again. And then January 15th, they're like, nope, you're not getting out.
Yeah, because we can't let him out because we don't want to lose the trust of the public or something like that. Excuse me, we don't trust you already.
Yeah.
You don't have to trust. But again, it's a liberal appointed judge and she has donated multiple times. I think like 26 times to the Liberal Party.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, bro.
For a reason.
76% of the judiciary in Canada, right? So that's 76% of all the judges in Canada, all of them, 3/4 of them, donors to and members of the Liberal Party of Canada, right?
Yeah,
they're doing what they're told, and on a case like this where you rule against the government, your career as a judge ends there. Like if this Court of King's Bench lady Jonna Kubik had let these guys out on bail, they can fundraise for their defense. They can call bullshit on everything the media says. They can have events. They can do social stuff. They can defend themselves, right? The government can't have these guys defending themselves because then that calls into question the entire judgment on the Emergencies Act from the POEC. Then it makes Trudeau look even worse than he already does because he still has, for all of like the Zexy Lees and his supporters, he can always say, well, we had this situation in Coots with all these guys with guns, and I was legitimate in making that action. Whether or not it's true, whether or not they were set up, whether or not they got thrown under the bus by these other guys at Coots, whether or not any of the evidence is true, doesn't matter. Trudeau got his fucking ruling out of Justice Rouleau, and that's how it has to stay. And to hell with these 4 men and their families, right? That's what's going on here.
Yeah, exactly. 110%, bud. And murderers, rapists, all these other people are getting let out. They're getting their bail. They're getting this release program that they've come up with or whatever. And, like, it's absolutely tyranny. It's 100% political prisoners. They're doing it on purpose, and they're breaking the law doing it, which they've been doing it ever since 2020, well, before even. But, I mean, they don't care about any of us. They're making examples out of these guys to scare everyone else from doing something like that again, and it's working. In my eyes, people are scared, especially like in Canada. They're not standing up like they are in Germany or anything right now. But we are always 6 to 8 months behind, the European countries. So eventually we're going to have to stand up the same way here. And the farmers are doing great things over there in multiple countries right now. but they're just not going to let these boys out. They're talking about the 30 months or whatever
The
with the
Jordan rule.
Jordan Act.
It's called
Jordan
the
rule.
it's called the Jordan ruling, which was a Supreme Court of Canada ruling that addresses this question of like how long is too long for a trial to get underway. Because there's the whole concept of having a speedy trial, and justice delayed is justice denied, and all that, which seems to have gone out the window. And I'm starting to believe that like it might get drawn out to the Jordan thing because they don't have any evidence. And I think once we stir the pot enough and like things are happening, things are in motion. Well, they will be by the time this podcast comes out, things will have been in motion that you're going to see. And they're going to be embarrassed, and they're going to be there's going to be a as Jim Leahy from the Trailer Park Boys, peace be upon him, used to say, the shit winds are blowing. And they're going to end up dragging it out to the Jordan limit because they got nothing, and it's going to be embarrassing for them if this goes to trial and they lose. So
exactly.
I'm somewhat, I could be wrong, but it seems quite likely to me that they'll drag it out. Their charges will all be stayed. The 4 men will be let out, but there will be no accountability. The government will just wash their hands of it, and no one's guilty. No one's proven innocent, and the government can just say, we're done here, right? And they'll get away with it.
We're dropping the charges. Yeah, after they stay it for so long or whatever. It's hard to say, but I mean, my prediction is the same as yours when it comes to that, for sure. And just the fact that, like, you guys got to understand too, these guys are in like remand centers. They're not in a penitentiary.
No, they don't. They don't have the same. They do not have the same rights and privileges that convicted felons have.
No, that's right. And that's the same as where I was too. It's not the same. You don't get to order your own food. You don't get to wear your own clothes and stuff like you do in actual jail. These are remand centers where you're supposed to be just held there until you're processed, and then you move on to the jail, and they're not getting that. So like when there's basically, you also understand, like, you're supposed to be getting yard time. That's the law. They never did it to me. They never gave us ours neither. Very sporadic and not often. You're supposed to get so much time out of your cell per day by law. They're not doing it. So you imagine being stuck in a 6x12 cell 23 hours a day, sometimes for days on end, right?
Yeah, no. They've put a couple of the Coots guys in solitary for stretches of like 40 days.
Yeah, that's basically what it is, anyways. It's crazy, and it wears you down. You're stuck in that little cell. So it's good to hear, that Tony is doing really well. I see the other guys posts and stuff, and they're doing as well as possible. They're keeping their spirits up. I just wish they would listen to a little bit less of the noise on the outside, and not make certain posts on their pages.
I think
you're in an echo chamber, and you're only getting one side of the story. You don't actually know. It's causing more grief.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And you can tell. Well, this is part of the deal, right? Like, the punishment is like it gets to your head in a way, and like I don't want to like make a judgment or make any guesses about their psychological condition, but like, it doesn't take much to imagine that like their heads are not in a state to be cognizant and aware of like all of these social media bad actors out there that are, in the end doing things that are just basically counterproductive. And I'll leave it at that. But anyway, as I said, the shit winds are blowing and the cavalry's on its way. We're recording this before that happens, and this recording will come out, and it'll be a whole different ball game with the Coots guys. So stay tuned.
You bet. That's right. We'll just keep pushing forward. Stay positive. God wins. We have to go through all these steps. We have to go through this for humanity to wake up. I've said it many times. Unfortunately, it's got to get bad before it gets better for certain people to snap out of it. Like a lot of people still to this day don't even know. I'm a truck driver. I'm hauling natural gas, keeping us warm. And I talk to truckers out there all the time at the unloads and load stations and stuff, and some of them don't even know what the WEF is. Seriously. So I drop a bunch of information on them. Those poor guys, if they do go home and go Google, they're probably just losing their minds, you know. But it's the way it is. And the censorship and all that jazz, you know, they're not seeing it. And a lot of people just don't care until it affects them. They don't believe it until it affects them, and that's when they start researching, and that's when they start going down that rabbit hole. And when you do that, it's you got to let people. Everybody is in a different spot that they're awakening, is what I say. Right? There's still people that like to wave their flags on the bridges and you know and go to these rallies and stuff like that are just waking up. That's new to them. They're getting out there. So I encourage people not to, you know, people like me and yourself and many others, we'll go to some of those, but that's not our focus anymore, right? But I see people that are in our position bashing those people for doing nothing, and that's a waste of time. And wait a minute, you were there too at one time, right? So it's all part of the process for everybody, and everybody's in a different spot. Everybody has a different purpose in what's going on.
Right.
So just stay positive and be humble. Be nice. You don't know what people are going through.
No,
you don't know what's
right.
happened to them. Some of these people lost 7, 6, 5 family members because they all took the experimental freaking jab, right? So they're losing their shit. You know, and they're waking up at the same time because they lost that. So
yeah. And a lot of people are pretending it's not happening, and you know the psyops are plentiful, and it's hard for people. And I get it. And you're right. The best thing to do is be nice, be humble, lead by example. You know, I wasn't very nice a couple times in this show. I got a little bit yappy, but
that's okay. Those people don't deserve us to be nice to them. They haven't been nice to us.
Well, they have time,
especially Trudeau.
They have time. There is time to repent and discover the error of your ways and choose a different path, even for Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, you bet.
Anyways, Freedom George, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really glad to introduce you to the audience. I remember before my Twitter account was suspended, I got a bunch of homies down here in the US who are all supporters of the Freedom Convoy. A lot of working class dudes that like get it. And when your video came out of you coming out of that courthouse, like it went viral in certain corners of Twitter down here. And a bunch of my boys were like, Chud, stay winning. You know, like they loved it. They're gonna love hearing from you, man. You're gonna be the voice they can attach to this awesome video they saw. And I'm really glad you could join us.
You betcha. And if you do have social media, I'm Freedom George on Facebook. That's basically the one platform that I use the most. I kind of check in on other ones, but Freedom George on Facebook. So also Freedom for Us All on Facebook. That was when I had started, you know, in my awakening. That's where that came from. Freedom for Us All. So,
right. Or maybe they'll see you. Maybe they'll see you hauling natural gas on the highways and byways of Northern Alberta.
Yeah, you bet. Exactly. Yeah. So just stay humble out there, guys. Stay nice. And you know, we got this. We have to do it. We have to go through this process. So
all right, right on. Thanks again, George. And way of the road.
You betcha, brother. Thank you. Freedom. Let's go.